Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Observations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
I've heard it said before, like, it was a very smart man named Robert Meyer Burnett who said the currency of our current age is authenticity. And it's so true.
Imagination Connoisseurs Unlimited, in association with Road to Perdition writer Max Allan Collins, brings you the full-blown audio drama True Noir, the Nathan Heller Casebooks, starring actor Todd Stashwick. You knew him as Deacon in 12 Monkeys, and you loved him as Captain Liam Shaw in Picard Season 3, plays Nathan Heller, once a Chicago PD officer turned Private Eye to the Stars, based on the 19-novel series by Max Allan Collins, coming to a crowdfunding campaign near you. Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master in fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, the maybe never to be defined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm Robcasting at you from right here in the Robservatory. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations, episode 933, in our march to the 1,000-minute, 1,000th episode of Robservations. So, there you go. Us YouTubers, we're all a motley bunch. We all stick together. We all talk. We all gossip. No, that's not true. But some of us do know each other, and we're in contact with each other. We sometimes go out and do things together. We can, talk shop or talk whatever we want to talk about. And then there's some people on YouTube that I've known for 3 decades, like Chris Gore. We've had our differences in the past. Certainly. But I've always respected Chris, and of course he was the voice of indie cinema. In the wake of the indie explosion of the late 80s and early 90s, he was covering the independent film scene in his magazine Film Threat. He had offices I used to go visit quite often, and he was sort of the epicenter of the LA independent film scene. So we've been friends ever since then. He briefly appears. If you blink, you'll miss him. He was in my movie Free Enterprise. It's going to turn 25 in June. But yeah, so I've been friends with him for a long time. And when we share information, as a matter of fact, full disclosure, Tango Shalom won Best Indie Comedy at the Award This Film Festival in 2022. And that was really actually a great honor. So I've known Chris for a long time, and he sends me some interesting things. And of course, he has been coming out a lot, looking at new DEI policies from the studios and things like diversity, equity, inclusion. And of course, he's done some really good work lately examining this new, like the Writers Guild. Everybody wants you to declare who and what you are. Your identity. It's so weird. Did we not learn anything? It's just a very odd situation where people want you to declare who you are, as if who you are and what your identity is going to make you a better writer. I don't really understand that. And then he sent me, interestingly, the other day, he sent me this after I had done a video, I sent him a link to the video I did with a letter writer talking about him and talking about how he was punk. So I put the video up. I figured if he told me not to put it up, I would have put it up anyway because, I'm that kind of guy. I'm a free spirit and I believe in freedom of speech. But I did send him the link so he knew. And in response to that, he sent me this website, this Amazon website that he already has done a piece on. So if you want more of an overview, you can go look at his 20-minute video that he put up, I think, today. Pretty good video. But I found it fascinating from a storytelling point of view. And the reason that I found it interesting is I don't believe in DEI initiatives or diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to storytelling. I don't. I don't want to see diverse stories. I want to see a diversity in the stories that are being told. But I think the best stories are the most specific stories. The stories that delve into, say, one culture and show us, do deep dives into places and people that I don't know or I've never seen. And I want those stories to be as authentic as possible. So if you're going to tell me a story about a certain group or a certain historical period, I want those stories to be as accurate and as representative of what actually is being told to me as possible. I would not want to see historical stories. Like I don't know. I saw, you can see on video, Mads Mikkelsen was at a film festival and he was being taken to task. His new movie, I don't know if it's called Another Country, maybe. It's his new film. They presented it at a film festival, and a reporter asked him if he was upset about the lack of inclusion in terms of people in the story. And he's like, he gets really annoyed. He's like, what do you want about? This is a historical story like about the late 1600s. And it's a story of, it's either a Danish story, I think. And he's like, you're kidding, right? Like, it's a story about a certain time and a place and the kinds of people that were there. And this place was not known for its diversity. But the reporter was very earnest. And I find that we are, look, when we are now living in a world where historical figures like Anne Boleyn can be played by actors of the different colors, I mean, I find it really interesting that that's okay, but now people are screaming when a gay character is played by a non-gay actor, or a trans character is played by a non-trans actor, which to me has always been strange because the very act of acting inherent in the job is to not be the thing that you're portraying. And this idea, now I understand the idea of an actor taking away a role from, say, a lesser known gay actor, and perhaps a gay actor who's better for the role, or a gay actor could bring a better sense of authenticity to that character. However, that's not the only reason that you cast people, especially in Hollywood movies. You also need, first and foremost, great actors and actresses. You need great performers in the role, and you want the best performer that you can get, the person that understands how to be somebody they're not. That's actually the first job of an actor. Can you believe that this person can portray somebody that they aren't? That's first and foremost. The idea that a person has to have that lived-in experience or be the thing that they're playing, I can understand that. And if there's another actor that's perfect for the role, the question then becomes, a movie is not a charity. A movie is a product to be sold. And then behind the great actor, people would say, I've got this reversed, but behind the great actor, you need somebody that's bankable. If you're going to put a lead actor in a movie that costs $50 to $100 million, you need an actor that is not only a great actor, but Hollywood would say, this is the first thing that Hollywood would say, you need to put an actor in a movie that people will pay to come see. That is number one. That is first and foremost. I, as a filmmaker myself, would always want to cast the best actor for the role. But Hollywood will tell you, oh, no. As the budget of the film goes up, the person that's most bankable becomes most important. And it's true. When you're making an independent movie and you're looking for financing, financiers will give you a list of 10 people or 5 people. And all the financiers want the same 5 people in their movies that they can sell around the world. That's all they want. And if you have a certain actor, they'll give you the money and you can make it. And whether the movie's good or bad, they've already pre-sold it, so it's gonna go out into the world and somebody's gonna get paid. But it struck me so weird that this new thing, and it was really interesting. I think was it Coleman Hughes was on Bill Maher this week, and he was talking about DEI initiatives and that, like, I believe that we were on a pretty good path. And then in 2013 to 2014, it all went off the rails. And maybe because of social media, I would say it was designed. There are certain forces that have made DEI an initiative, very strong forces, and what they want from that, I cannot say. But I can tell you what Amazon can say. And let's look at certain things. WePower, this is from this website. And by the way, I did put a link to the website in the description below. So you can link to it. You might have to cut and paste it, but it's in the description below. So you can follow along. WePower, inclusive storytelling. Amazon Studios and Prime Video is a home for talent of all backgrounds. And we are working to tell stories that represent the joy, the depth, the complexity, and drama that exists across our world. Join the customer and content, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility team as we unite with our creative community to tell these stories more inclusively than ever before. And there's an inclusion playbook. Deep dive into DEIA's inclusion playbook, the industry's first definitive guide to help ensure diverse and accurate storytelling. Really? So if you're doing a historical epic that Mads Mikkelsen is in, and there aren't a lot of people other than white people from Northern Europe, does that mean you can't tell that story? Or does that mean you have to find more equity and inclusion by hiring actors that don't look like anybody they might have encountered at that particular time in that particular part of Northern England? See, this is what I find so strange, because as you go back into history, there was no inclusion. I mean, sure, there was different people in different parts of the world, but if you were going to go make a movie about feudal Japan and the Tokugawa shogunate, if you included mostly Japanese people, would that somehow be wrong? I would say no. No one's going to the Korean film board or whatever and saying, we need more inclusion in the next Squid Game. Although I hear it takes place around the world, which makes sense. But if I was watching Parasite, one of the fascinating things about watching the Academy Award-winning Best Picture Parasite is that it's about Korean society, that it's different from my world. I don't know what that world is like. So I want to see, I don't know, call me crazy, Koreans starring in a Korean movie. Now, I wouldn't want Amazon to not acquire a foreign film because it only had, I don't know, foreigners in it. That's what I'm counting on. I think a lot of our great stories, the difference, here's what DEI doesn't get. DEI doesn't understand that specificity is what makes storytelling great. The more specific the details, the more specific the flavors, the colors, the people are to whatever story you're telling, the more interesting it becomes. It's those details that we're only going to get, like, depending on where you are in the world. If somebody's telling me a story about, I don't know, the Congo or something, someplace I've never been. I've never been to Africa. I've been to the Middle East. I've been to Israel, but I've never been to Africa. I'd love to go to Africa. And I want to know if I watch a movie about Africa, I want to be able to taste it and smell it and feel it in my bones when I'm watching a movie. I don't necessarily want a diverse group of people. What I want is the specific people that live in that specific area. And the story being told, I want it populated with the actors that make me believe that what I'm watching is actually happening. I want to believe it. That's what I think is most important. And this is, let's jump into this. Now, this Amazon listing, and Chris went through some of this, this is actually about storytelling. Now, this is specifically telling writers how to write. Now, here we go. Let's go through this together, shall we? Storytelling: gender, sexuality, romance, and humor. Below, we outline storytelling areas that can easily fall prey to stereotypical writing or thinking. While education is key, research has shown that hiring content creators with cultural experience and perspective is the best way to craft an authentic story and avoid stereotypes. So, education is key. I guess it's key, but research has shown that hiring content creators with cultural experience and perspective is the best way to craft an authentic story and avoid stereotypes. Well, what if those people aren't good writers? What if they don't know how to structure a story? Hiring content creators, not screenwriters, content creators with cultural experience and perspective of what? What kind of cultural experience are you talking about? If you're writing a science fiction story that's set on a far-flung planet, what kind of cultural experience and perspective is the best to tell a story about an alien civilization? Do you need to be an immigrant? Like if you're writing, say, Alien Romulus, do you need somebody that has real insight into the xenomorph culture in order to tell that story? What about the Predator homeworld? We're getting a new Predator movie, we found out, and if you watch AVP Requiem, you see the Predator homeworld. You even see a workaday Predator having to reluctantly go to Earth to pick up a mess. Do you need a writer who knows about the Predator? Why is it? And what research has shown that hiring content creators with cultural experience, what kind of cultural experience? Of what culture? What are you talking about here? And who made this decision? And where's the research coming from? Doesn't say. But now, here's where it gets really wacky. Script-based descriptions and stereotypes. The way that characters are described in a script can evoke stereotypes for casting directors, breakdown services, and even those reading for the most part. Consider the following when describing characters in your script. Is there a reason to specify a character's gender, race, ethnicity, LGBTQ identity, or disability in the script? Does the source material specify a character's identity in any way? Are you deviating from that depiction? Why or why not? Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about William Friedkin's thriller Cruising, which takes place in the leather daddy, gay underworld of late 70s, early 80s New York City. Now, if you're talking about a bar full of men wearing leather chaps that are assless, they've got big mutton chop mustaches, and they're greasing up their hands with Crisco. Is this a gay stereotype, or is it actually what's going on in the bars that Friedkin went to see what this underworld was like because he wanted to get the details correct? Is that wrong? I mean, if you are talking about, say, someone who's LGBTQ, say a gay man who's flamboyant, and if you described him as somebody who's so flamboyant, he'd make most of the contestants on RuPaul's Drag Race look tame in comparison. Is that a stereotype? Well, let me let you in on a little secret. A screenplay, usually, if you're a good screenwriter, you get at most 4 sentences per descriptive paragraph to explain what you see in the proscenium of the frame, hopefully. So a great screenwriter is going to paint with words what we see. So when you're reading the script, whether it's a casting director or whether it's an actor or whether it's below the line people, your cinematographer, his lighting crew, her lighting crew, whatever you're reading, you only have a very small amount of words to paint a very specific picture of the kind of person that you see. And certain shortcuts, or maybe call them stereotypes if you want, are used because you don't have time to really explain away. Like, I have a question. How do you describe someone who's non-binary? I don't know. Like if you're a casting director and all you've said in the script, meet Pinto. Pinto is a 23-year-old non-binary barista. And if you were to describe maybe short hair, half dyed blue, half dyed silver. How do you know what to do with that? Now, when you're asking for a non-binary character, I don't know what that person's going to look like because they're non-binary. So I guess you have to use what does a non-binary person look like? Is there a standard of non-binary characters? Honestly, I don't know the answer to this question. But if you told me that somebody was non-binary, my first inclination as somebody, I'm like, okay, they're non-binary. But I would then ask myself, I guess that means if you stop and think, is it a male or female who is identifying as non-binary? Because you have a choice. There's a choice there. And the casting director is going to ask you, do you want a person? Because how do you answer that question? Do you not say it at all? And you could, during what's called breakdown, say you're looking for a non-binary role, a non-binary actor. You could just say that, but that's a pretty wide net to cast. And I would say you'd have to add some more of a descriptor there so you don't offend somebody. But the idea that somebody's going to be offended by what's in a screenplay is a blueprint for what will eventually hopefully be a movie. And it's written in such a way where it has a very short period of time to paint characters, paint locations, paint action in very quick terms that is designed to paint the easiest picture you can. So if you want to have a whatever character, like a lawyer, if you're describing a lawyer, how is that person dressed? Are they stuffy? Is stuffy somehow, is that a bad word to use? How do you describe people if you can't use shorthand that we all understand? I don't know. I don't actually think this document knows either because it wasn't written by anybody who's ever written a screenplay. So the way that characters are described in a script can evoke stereotypes for casting directors. I would argue that yes, they kind of should. Because otherwise, how is a casting director going to know who to bring in that the director wants to see? Now, you could cast a much wider net, of course. But I would say that the script should tell you much more concisely, you don't want to bring in 1,000 people for every role. You have to be able to hone in. And this is in screenplay description. Does source material specify a character's identity in any way? Are you deviating from that depiction? Why or why not? Well, I would say you absolutely have to describe a character's identity so you know what the character is, so the people, when they go out on breakdowns, can get the right person for the role. Are there places where you should specify information about the character's background or identity? Gender identity, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender expression, or disability to help with casting. Consider sharing this information only if it is needed for the story. Well, most people do. The information that you're sharing in a screenplay is designed by definition to tell you exactly who the character is and what they're like in the least amount of words possible. Now, it's being suggested here that somehow the actual screenplay, here's the purpose of a screenplay is not just to lay out the blueprint of the entire story, but it's also to tell all the other department heads what kind of a story we're telling. So the way people are described is very important to the overall aesthetic of what the film is eventually going to be. We recommend that writers, first of all, why the fuck is this document making any recommendations to writers at all? Why? Did the people that write this document, are they screenwriters? And if they're screenwriters, who are they to tell other screenwriters how to write? We recommend that writers be specific and authentic in their descriptions to help casting directors and those reading for the part avoid harmful stereotypes. I agree with this. Harmful stereotypes, first of all, unless, of course, you are writing something that a stereotype is what's required, in which case harmful stereotypes, I don't know if stereotypes are necessarily harmful, because if they're stereotypes, we all know what they are. And usually we can all either understand or recognize them. And in the context of a screenplay, it's a good bet that the writer used a specific stereotype to elicit a specific reaction, so the audience and the people making the movie knew what they were doing. But isn't that interesting? Are there places where you should specify information about the character's background and or identity to help with casting? Consider sharing this information only if it's needed for the story. And then the next thing is, we recommend writers be specific and authentic in their descriptions. I'm beside myself, because what does this have to do with screenwriting? And what does this have to do with good screenwriting? I would say what people are being protected against is people that should never read screenplays and never work in Hollywood at all, to be honest. Gendered or sexualized depictions. Sexualization can have negative effects on viewers. Sexualization of characters of all genders occurs on screen, but research indicates that women and LGBTQ characters are more likely than straight men to be sexualized. Really? Like in scene descriptions? I mean, doesn't it really depend on the kind of story? Like, if you're going to write a description of what James Bond looks like when he first comes on the screen, what about when James Bond in Casino Royale, when they talk about what he looked like when he came up out of the ocean, when he went to the Bahamas? I don't actually have that script in front of me, but I wonder how he was described. I get it. Straight men. So LGBTQ characters are more likely than straight men to be sexualized. This begins when the script is written, with how your characters are described. These are movies we're talking about. I would assume, like if I was writing Lawrence Kasdan's Body Heat, when I'm describing the first time William Hurt sees Kathleen Turner in the movie, that she better damn well be sexualized in the description, so you can understand what kind of physiological reaction she's eliciting from William Hurt's character. I mean, none of this makes any sense to me, because it certainly has nothing to do with writing. And the idea that a character, like, who are you trying to protect from a screenplay? The reader? I mean, obviously the people that are making this movie are going to make the movie that they think is going to appeal to the widest group of people. They're not going to try and make a movie that people don't like. This is such a strange thing. Are LGBTQ characters solely defined by their sexual identities? What I don't understand is, why does this say everybody? Why are they only worried about LGBTQ characters defined by their sexual identities? I would say that LGBTQ characters, if you're gay and you call yourself gay, that definition immediately defines you by your sexual identity. You like people and you want to make love to people of the same sex. So how is that not your identity? I mean, we're talking about, it's almost like people want to be defined and then not deal with the actual definitions and what they mean. That's why when it comes to something like a non-binary character, I can't think of anything that is not helpful to me. If someone's non-binary, I need to have something that I can lock onto, that I can envision what this character might look like in the head of the director or the screenwriter. Like, what kind of person are they envisioning? If they're telling me someone's non-binary, I don't know what that means. All I know is the stereotype of what I see on TikTok or Instagram or what. I mean, I don't know. I need to specifically paint a picture in my mind of what a non-binary character looks like. I don't know. I've seen all kinds of different kinds of non-binary characters. And if you want, say you want your non-binary character to be shorter than the hero, and your hero is 5'10", well, then you can say, I need a non-binary character that's shorter than, say, 5'8". You need to have something that you can paint with your words that people know. Are LGBTQ characters in overly feminized or masculine occupations? Does that matter? What does that mean? Why is that even there? What does that mean? In overly feminized or masculine occupations. Here's the thing. One of the interesting things about Flashdance is Jennifer Beals, which, by the way, is now 41 years old. But Jennifer Beals, they played off the fact that there are no female welders. I mean, I'm sure there are female welders, but I would imagine that, like YouTube, I know that 96% of my audience, according to YouTube analytics, is male. So if I'm going to speak, I have to remember that 96% of my audience is a male audience. And there's not a whole lot of reason for me to tailor my shows to a female audience. Now, I don't know the answer to within that. I can tell you different ethnicities, like different countries and things like that, but I don't know what percentage of my audience identifies as LGBTQ. I do know that 96%, according to the YouTube analytic, can be defined as male. I know that. I can see the analytics. So I don't even know, what does that mean? Characters, what if I want to make a movie like Backdraft? Firefighters, there's a majority of firefighters. I don't have the actual data in front of me, but I would imagine that a majority of firefighters are in fact male. The same with, other male-dominated professions, plumbers, maybe. There's an inordinate amount of men who are plumbers, I would imagine. It's not going to ever drop. You're not going to ever have plumbers being a 50-50 men, women in that occupation. And you know what? That's okay. So if I'm going to make a character who is a plumber, as a matter of fact, Peter Weir, the great Peter Weir, who made movies like Picnic at Hanging Rock and Witness and other great films, if you want to delve into his filmography, he actually made a short film called The Plumber. I guess now they would gender swap it and make the plumber female. But would that work? I don't even understand this. So, for example, are gay characters shown in appearance-related professions, fashion, entertainment, etc.? Are they excluded from occupations in education, healthcare, or civil service, including police or fire departments? What does that even mean? I mean, first of all, people who are interested in fashion, and I know because I interview a lot of costume designers who are involved in fashion. There's a lot of people that are flamboyant, that are LGBTQ, that are drawn to the arts. How do I know that? Because I too have worked in the arts for 35 years now. And I can tell you that I've met an inordinate amount of people in the arts. That's why I like working in the arts, because of the diversity of the kinds of people that I've worked with. And from the very first movie that I worked on, I've met people of all shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds. And this idea, are gay characters shown in appearance-related professions? What if they are? What if you're making a dance movie? I mean, can you not do that? What are they telling you here? I mean, it's so funny because stereotypes are usually ultimately derived from an element of truth. I mean, that we can all talk about. A dad bod, for instance. I have a dad bod, I would say. I know what that means. It's a stereotype. It's also pretty true. Once you become a dad, hitting the gym does not become your number one priority. Hence the dad bod. Is that offensive? Or is it only offensive if you're talking about a certain kind of dad? Because then you start saying, well, dad, we gotta be careful on that. Maybe there's no such thing as dads anymore. How about person? I mean, this kind of thinking is so ridiculous. And this goes on to say, although you may not realize it at the time, you're writing the story. Adults are often cast to play teen roles. Consider carefully how these characters might be sexualized on screen. How might the descriptions you write about the characters be impacted if adults are cast in these roles? I don't know many things where adults are cast as teens anymore. We live in an era where that doesn't happen. You're not hiring Stockard Channing and John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John and Jeff Conaway to play teenagers in Grease. Those days are over. But okay, I don't know what that means. Personality traits. The description of a character's personality or distinctive traits may lead to appearance-related stereotypes. Sometimes character descriptions are written in a way that draws upon stereotypes or tropes. Well, in screenplays, yes, because it has to be done very quickly. This is particularly likely when writing women characters. Where's the evidence for this? Did they take all of the Academy Award-winning screenplays over the last 100 years and do an analysis, where are they getting this? This is particularly likely when writing women characters or individuals from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. I'll tell you something. I've read a lot of screenplays in my life. I've actually read thousands of screenplays. And I have to tell you, there's been very few times when I've come across screenwriting that is offensive in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, they use a shorthand, but it's usually a shorthand that you can immediately understand. I haven't read a lot of overtly racist or dismissive or offensive screenplays, unless, of course, they're meant to be based on a dialogue exchange. You know, one of my favorite lines of dialogue, which I can't even say on YouTube, was uttered by Robert Prosky in Michael Mann's 1981 banger of a movie, Thief. And I was sitting next to my very conservative grandfather when he uttered a string of profanities and called people names I had never heard said that way. And I turned to look at my grandfather and I was like, oh. But, you know, nowadays you wouldn't have that line of dialogue. I would say that line of dialogue was necessary in that movie to establish the kind of threat that our protagonist faced. Be sure that your character descriptions do not evoke stereotypes related to women of color. Chris went over this too. Avoid the use of terms exotic, feisty, sassy, and other words stereotypically used to refer to underrepresented women. It's better to be specific. Example, the lead is from Puerto Rico, loves to sing, and has a big group of friends. Wait a minute. A woman from Puerto Rico loves to sing and has a big group of friends. That isn't stereotypical? Or I would say that, how about the lead is an exotically feisty and very sassy woman from Puerto Rico. She loves to sing and has a big group of friends. What is wrong with the words sassy and feisty? Sassy is a one-word description that an actor can read and go, I get it. Feisty is the same way, especially a feisty Puerto Rican woman. Is that offensive? I like feisty women, and everyone knows what that word means. I would say that the great thing about a screenplay is when you say feisty, that one word is all you need to know. Now, if you can say she's a feisty woman from Puerto Rico, is that because that's a stereotype because all women from Puerto Rico are feisty? I mean, that's that Latin blood, right? And the thing is, I get it, but we all understand, is that offensive? No, but that can help you find the actress you need to cast for the role. Won't it? Descriptions of people with disabilities may focus on aspects related to disability rather than a range of characteristics. Make sure your characters with disabilities are well-rounded and defined by more than their disability. Well, I would think that's what a good character does. But if you're writing about a character that's in a wheelchair and you're describing them for the first time, I'd like to say a feisty, sassy Puerto Rican woman, but she's confined to a wheelchair. I mean, it's so. This document is clearly written by somebody that's never written a screenplay. Why is this document here? Why does it exist? What is its point? Like, I don't get it. It basically is telling you how to be a bad screenwriter. Domestic roles. Consider the depiction of caregiving and romantic relationships and whether they fall along stereotypical or traditional lines. Example, heteronormative. Women as subservient. Men as protector or provider. What if you're doing a movie about King Arthur? I mean, heteronormative. You mean the kind of relationships that have allowed human beings to procreate? The majority of relationships on planet Earth are heteronormative, so we can't have those anymore. We have to define them that way. It's such a weird. Oh, I know. You know, no, that doesn't mean people are hetero anymore. It's such a bizarre. It's so bizarre that, especially when you look at the demographic breakdowns around the world, they certainly don't back any of this up, to be honest. I don't understand. Rescue storylines or those focusing on chivalry can be particularly problematic. What? What? Is chivalry truly dead? Like Chris Gore pointed out, what, they can't go rescue the princess from the Death Star anymore? Chivalry is dead. You can't have a man or you can't have a woman hero who wants to be chivalrous? Why not? Is that bad? Like what? I mean, and this is, they brought this up. Chris brought this up too. For example, the LGBTQ community is rarely shown in parental roles or as relational partners. Yet, between 2 and 3.7 million U.S. children have one or more LGBTQ parent. Okay, that's interesting, and I that is absolutely valid. Now, I would say to this, how many children are in the United States? I'll just punch that into Google. Punch that up. Because I have this on and I'm running on my laptop, it sometimes takes a while to get these answers when I've got my broadcast software running, which I hate, but because I want to get this answer back. But anyway, well, when I get it, I'll make the point that I would like to make. But I get that, but you still have to deal with the fact that this is a relatively new phenomenon. And if you're going to go back and you're going to tell a story, say you want to make October Sky 2, are you going to have a LGBTQ mother or father in the mix? And I'll give you one. Okay, here we go. The demographic composition provides an important context for understanding. There were 72.5 million children in the United States, which was 0.4 million less than 2021. 72.5 million. And let's round up. Let's go to 3.7 million children have one or more LGBTQ parent. Okay, 3 million into 72.5 million. This is not a 50-50 thing. The majority of kids in the United States do not have LGBTQ parents. Want to hear a secret? My mother, when my father was still alive, my mother fell in love with a woman and had a relationship with a woman for 10 years until she passed away. And my mother's never had another relationship since. So I ask you, I grew up in a heteronormative household. And then when I was in college, my mom fell in love with another woman. And then she was with her for 10 years after that. So what kind of a household does that make me come from? Now, if I were to tell my own story and I were to write a story about my mother falling in love with a woman and what it did to our family, would I be okay? Would Amazon let me tell my story? Or would they say, this really isn't your story to tell because you're a white, cis, heteronormative male? The thing is, there's kinds of stories, and by the way, I'm not telling tales out of school. There are all kinds of stories to be told, and all different kinds of people have different stories. Every person has a story you have yet to hear. And I don't think there's any such thing as anyone being normal. There are demographics, certainly, that you can look into. According to the 2022 census, 72.5% of children have non-LGBTQ parents. So if you're going to be inclusive and tell a story, the majority of stories about families that you're going to tell are not going to have LGBTQ parents. As a matter of fact, it would be anomalous if you did. And nowadays we're seeing the diversity and inclusion initiatives have made our entertainment seem a little strange. It almost seems as if an agenda is being pushed because the normality of the world has been removed from storytelling, which I don't think is good either. Now it goes on to say, considering asking the following questions when writing about parents and caregiving roles. Are women from all backgrounds and experiences defined solely by their relationship to children? I don't think anybody thinks that. Are non-binary characters shown as parents? I don't know. Are we far enough along that non-binary characters are around long enough in the world that we know how non-binary parents parent. I mean, I'd be interested to see. I watch TikTok videos and things about this, about non-binary families and raising non-binary kids and all of that. I don't fully understand it all, and I don't know if there's enough information to go by, but I wouldn't know how to tell that story. And if you're going to tell the story about non-binary parents, you have to have a story that's more than just about non-binary parents. What's the story about? Those are the characters, but what is the story about? Do they lose their child to protective services, or does their child go on to be a war hero? Or does their child die of a hideous disease? And if the child does die of a hideous disease, what do the parents, being non-binary, have to do about the child's plight? I mean, there's all these different questions. Stories are not like this. They're not cut and dried. There's a million different details in every single movie or every single TV show. Every single scene is layering more detail upon more detail. And these sweeping generalizations, I mean, talk about me, for instance. I'll bet you if I wanted to tell the story, I said, hey, I've got an interesting story about my own family, about my own mother. You know, they would give me this and say, well, you can't tell. Your story doesn't count because, you know, like I said, you're just a white guy. And you might have this thing with your mom, but that happened late in life. Oh, really? But it happened. It's part of my story. If I was going to write another autobiographical movie, if I put that story in there, you know what? People would say I was pandering or I was trying to tread on something. They wouldn't even accept the fact that I said, but this really happened. It doesn't matter. It doesn't count. Really weird. When elderly relatives requiring care are included in the story, who provides that care? Oh, I don't know. Like their kids? What do you mean, who provides that care? I mean, for thousands of years, younger generations have been providing for the elderly. Like, I'll tell you what, maybe a flamboyant LGBTQ character who's perhaps non-binary, who's feisty and sassy from Puerto Rico can be the character that provides the care to my, elderly mom. I mean, what is this? Like, who wrote this? And what kind of stories, like, where do they think the story's going to go? I want to know by following. I want somebody. Here's the thing. I hope some storyteller decides to take this into account or plug this into AI and have AI write this story that fulfills the diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility. And then I want to know who's going to fucking pay to go see this movie at the box office. What kind of movie are you supposed to? Now we get down to stereotypes and humor. We understand that the best comedy can derive from the unexpected, and be an agent of truth-telling. We urge content creators focusing on comedy, humor, or satire to engage with their material in deep ways. Ask the fundamental question, are you the right person to tell this story and or these jokes? You know what I'd say to that? Fuck you. I can tell whatever goddamn story I want, as long as it's good. What kind of person am I supposed to be? Are you going to tell me, do I have to stay in my storytelling lane? What the fuck is this? What kind of world are we living in? Again, if I go have an experience or I want to tell a story or I do like writers have in the past, done lots of research into their subject, writers make shit up. That's the whole point. That's what writers do. They're not making fucking documentaries. Am I the right person to tell this joke? Why? I mean, this is unbelievable to me. Are you the right person to tell this story and or these jokes? I would say if I want to tell the story and have done the work, sure, I'm as good a person as anyone to tell the story. Begin by thinking about whether, as the storyteller, your humor comes from outside or inside the group at the center of the comedy. Out group members using humor to mock or joke about characters from underrepresented groups can be highly problematic. Humor may reflect insensitivity, play to broad stereotypes, and reinforce historical tropes for members of underrepresented groups. creators might try to challenge or spotlight stereotypes that have been oppressive. In other words, the comedy stems from good intentions, but content lacks authenticity when it doesn't come from or take into account the perspectives of in-group members at the core of the stereotype or content. What kind of draconian Orwellian bullshit is this? You know, speaking of George Orwell, do you know that we're further away from 1984 than 1984 the year was from the publication of Orwell's 1984? I would say in the intervening 40 years, our world has gotten a lot more Orwellian than I could have possibly imagined, certainly more so than it was in 1984 when I wrote a review of the movie 1984 that starred John Hurt in my high school newspaper that my friend Greg Smith did a beautiful illustration for. This is scary. Because who gets to decide this? Are you going to have a DEI? Is there going to be like the Star Chamber? Remember that movie that Peter Hyams directed? Not a great movie, but is there going to be a Star Chamber at Amazon? As Chris pointed out, as Gore pointed out, sensitivity readers who, you know what? I don't want sensitivity readers. I don't want anyone who's too sensitive to read anything. As a matter of fact, they'll come take half the books on my shelf away. This is so gross. I mean, this is so gross. Humor may be used to illuminate the way a group has been treated and can spotlight important ways that racism, sexism, and other biases and prejudices affect the lives of group members. Good to know. You know, life is beautiful. I can't wait to make my big comedy like Hogan's Heroes and set it in a concentration camp. And the group, you know, they gamble on who's going to be sent to the gas chamber tomorrow. What the fuck, man? This is so gross. It is so weird. If you take this path, think critically about what role this stereotype has in your story. Make sure that by poking fun at stereotypes, you are not inadvertently reinforcing the bias you seek to challenge. Here are a few things to consider when you include humor in your storytelling. If characters from underrepresented backgrounds or historically marginalized groups only appear in your story to deliver humorous lines or as a source of amusement, this is problematic. I would ask, why? Why? Why is that problematic? If I have a character walk in, and I'll give you an example. There's a line in, I don't remember, I'm trying to think of, Xavier, is it Xavier Daniels? I'm trying to think of it. There's this scene in Cameron Crowe's movie Singles from 1993, and it comes out and one of the characters is having sex, and his favorite basketball player shows up on screen and says, "Don't come yet," and it's in his mind. Would you have to get rid of that because a black basketball player suddenly comes on and tells a white character not to come? Would you lose that? Why would you lose that? It was fucking funny. It's not. You're doing exactly what this says, you know. Yeah, those basketball players, man, they're only good for one-liners. I mean, what? I mean, give me a break. I mean, how about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Hey, aren't you Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? My dad says you don't try very hard, except during the playoffs. Would you want to lose that scene from Airplane? Listen, kid. Come on. This is so silly. Actually, probably nowadays, Airplane wouldn't get made. Not if it had to live up to this. Review the script and story with members of the communities you're depicting to ensure authenticity and limit hurtful humor. Ask more than one individual to review the script and story. What audience members find amusing will differ from person to person. That's right, it would. So you as the filmmaker have to decide what's the audience is going to get. Making movies and making any kind of art is not about the audience, unless in Hollywood you need it sell to the largest number of people that you can find, in which case, yes, it is about the audience. And I would dare say all movies are about the audience. And what you want, any filmmaker worth their salt, I don't care who you are, is trying to make a movie and a story for everybody, for the widest possible group to enjoy. Nowadays, studios aren't even making things they can't sell all around the world. So humor is in short supply at the multiplexes because humor's colloquial and it doesn't travel. What's funny in one country isn't funny in another. Your goal is to be certain that the jokes do not offend the communities featured in your story. Excuse me while I whip this out. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? Humor, by definition, sometimes should be offensive. That's the whole point. It has something to teach us. Offensive humor is pretty cutting. And sometimes it reveals truths about ourselves that we don't necessarily want to hear. But putting them in a humorous context is one of the best ways to deal with that. Race and ethnicity, including creative voices from the community, is the best and most precise way to avoid stereotyping. But all people are prone to stereotypes and bias. Below are questions to act as speed bumps in the storytelling process to avoid common stereotypes. For black characters, are they shown in connection to violence, either as perpetrators or victims, particularly gang violence? Well, there goes New Jack City. I want to be a New Jack Hustler. I think Nino Brown, played by Wesley Snipes in that fucking movie, is genius. There goes Training Day. There goes Denzel Washington's Oscar-winning role. A black character can't be shown in connection to violence either as perpetrators or victims, especially gang violence. I mean, we live in a country where the black community has a large percentage of them incarcerated, more than any other community, and we have more people incarcerated than anywhere else in the world. So are you telling me that I can't make a movie that delves into the reasons for that? Could John Singleton make poetic justice with Tupac? Well, he can't because he passed away, but you know what I'm saying? Can he not do that? Can Larry Fishburne not play a sage-like father character that makes sure that Tupac doesn't get into trouble, maybe offers him a different way of life? You can't tell those stories anymore. You can't do an inner city story. You can't talk about gun violence in Chicago. You can't do that. That's actually happening. It's the way you do it. Are they linked to storylines that focus on drugs and addiction or sexual promiscuity? First of all, can't you write a storyline about anybody, any ethnicity, that focuses on drugs and addiction or sexual promiscuity? I give you Requiem for a Dream. Come on. Everybody was addicted to something in that movie. And let's face it, Jennifer Connelly goes ass to ass. I mean, what are they saying here? Who fucking wrote this drivel? Are they shown as a member of a family unit in ways that do not center on broken homes, single parents, or other aspects of family life that foreground difficulty rather than joy? Oh, okay, so we're going to go back to Cosby, the Cosby Show. Is that what we're doing? I mean, are they presented in positions that are linked to entertaining others? What, like Step and Fetch It? I mean, what are you talking about here? One of my favorite movies in life is Bertrand Tavernier's Round Midnight. It is about a drug-addicted horn player who goes to Paris. Can you not do that? He's entertaining others, and he's a drug addict. Oh, and by the way, he's also black. Overall, in your story, are they primarily dealing with hardships and difficulties that are linked to their race and ethnicity rather than to the plot? I don't know. Does that mean we have to get rid of Roots? That was a pretty damn good miniseries, and that had a lot of black actors in it, and they were primarily dealing with hardships and difficulties that are linked to their race. I mean, did anybody read this? For Hispanic and Latinx characters or Latinx characters, which the Latin community, from what I understand, doesn't even like. If the story is set in the U.S., are Hispanic, Latinx characters linked to an American identity, or are they framed as foreigners? I don't know. Why don't you go back and watch someone like Gregory Nava's movie, El Norte? Why don't you go watch that? How about Selena or La 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 Bamba? I mean, what do we do there? Are those characters linked to an American identity? Are they framed as foreigners? Or how about my favorite, Blood In, Blood Out? Milkweed? I mean, oh my God. Are they presented in relation to illegal activity, particularly undocumented immigration? You ever been a communist, man? They tell you what to do, what to say, what to think. Can't make Scarface anymore. That has illegal activity and undocumented immigration in it, and lots of sex and violence. Actually, not much sex, to be honest. There's too much cocaine. But what is their family situation? Are they shown in multi-generational contexts? Are they navigating monolingual or bilingual family setups? How about all of these things? Are you not supposed to do this? Are they shown in contexts with violence, especially related to undocumented immigration? Yeah, how about when people get picked up and thrown in? How about when ICE shows up and takes them away and brutalizes them and takes kids away from their parents on the border? Can we not talk about that? Are they shown as sneaky, sly, or scheming? And are they overly sexualized? Well, let me tell you, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go on record here as saying if you've ever gone to the Titty Twister and you've ever seen From Dusk Till Dawn, and let me tell you something, when Selma Hayek comes out as Satanic Pandemonia or whatever on stage, goddamn right she's overly sexualized, and you better let that movie still exist. Don't cancel From Dusk Till Dawn. Don't get mad at it because it's called The Titty Twister, and don't get mad on it in that because Selma Hayek is one of that moment in that movie is one of the hottest things I've ever seen in any movie ever. I mean, are you going to get rid of that? Yes, the answer is yes. For Asian characters, are men shown in a way that minimizes their sexuality or desirability as a romantic partner? This could include fulfilling the stereotype of a geek who is primarily interested in technology, math, or sciences. Okay, first of all, do we not learn anything from the Harvard admissions scandal? Why did you even bring this kind of thing up? Any character, doesn't matter if they're Asian, white, black, any character who's a geek. Talk about a group where stereotypes are absolutely acceptable. Watch Big Bang Theory. Are they depicted as predominantly foreign versus American? Consider expectations around Asian characters speaking with accents. Well, if you're watching a movie that was made in Asia, I guess that doesn't apply. But, Godzilla minus zero, minus color, two different versions of a movie played. And I would say they were depicted as predominantly Japanese. I mean, I understand it's a Japanese movie, but what are you saying? Are women depicted as naive, vulnerable, or silenced? In contrast, are they shown in a provocative light? Well, I don't know. I saw the movie Joyride. I don't know. What am I supposed to think about that movie? I loved it. Are they, particularly those who are shown affiliated with foreign countries, shown as dangerous, evil, or threatening to others? What are you only? Can we not watch? I don't know, Crazy Rich Asians anymore? Can we not watch any movie? Can I not watch any John Woo movie? Those are all made in Hong Kong with mostly Chinese actors. I can't watch any movies about Hong Kong triads. That's a whole genre of film. For Middle Eastern or North African MENA characters, I didn't realize that there was an acronym for that. MENA, I learn something new every day. Are they shown in violent situations, especially when linked to terrorism or religious extremism? I guess I can't watch The Siege anymore, another Denzel Washington movie that's getting canceled. Are they shown at the extremes of wealth, either as royalty, sheikhs, or business tycoons, or at the other end of the spectrum in roles associated with poverty and or refugees? Well, what if I want to make a movie that is a searing expose of what OnlyFans models have to go to when they're brought to Dubai for $50,000 weekends? What if I'm going to make that movie? Am I supposed to put Mads Mikkelsen in as the sheikh who's paying for all that? Are women associated with sexual repression or men shown as predatory in nature? Again, I want to make my Dubai set film about OnlyFans models being victimized by very wealthy men. Can I do that? Oh, can't do it. Not according to this, at least not for Amazon. Are they shown as good for their work to assist law enforcement or sympathize with American or Western values? Gosh, if I want to make a movie where the Houthis are the good guys, can I do that? Because, they're disrupting shipping through the Red Sea because they're just a bunch of good guys. Native or indigenous characters, do they portray historical tropes of native or indigenous characters as violent or antagonistic? I don't know. I mean, I think about a movie like Smoke Signals. You ever see that? That's a great movie. That's a great movie that stars Native Americans. Are they given mystical or supernatural abilities regarding nature or the natural knowledge simply due to their identity? Well, let me tell you, if you watch William Girdler's masterpiece of a film that's an adaptation of Graham Masterton's novel, The Manitou, Michael Ansara plays John Singing Rock, and he's the only person who can defend against the medicine man Misquamacus, who's coming out of the back of Susan Strasberg. Guess you can't make that movie anymore. God damn it. To be fair, that's not a great movie, but it did spawn a lot of great novels. The Manitou, Revenge of the Manitou, Burial, Manitou Blood. And it was written by a British guy. So I guess that gets doubly canceled. Is their existence on screen one-dimensional and solely to drive a plot related to cowboys and white characters? Come on. Cowboys and Indians? Is that what we're back to? Cowboys and Indians? Like, what about reservation dogs? What about that? I mean, aren't we a little bit beyond these kinds of things because we know that those kinds of tropes are a little outmoded? I guess we can't make Dances with Wolves, though. Representation based on location. The location or time period of a story can affect how inclusive it is. Yep, guess you can't make Braveheart anymore. The setting may be used to constrain choices about who can be a part of the story, sometimes legitimately, other times as an excuse. Consider two things when developing the setting of your story. For modern or contemporary stories, consider the location where your story is set. Make sure that the characters written into the story mirror the demographics of the location, at a minimum. Oh, like the demographics of, say, the United States? If your story is set in a metro U.S. area, reflect U.S. Census data for that area. Okay. For example, more than 70% of U.S. states feature a higher percentage of Hispanic Latinx residents than appear in popular films. The most popular countries in the U.S. also have more Latinos than the typical feature film. For U.S. data, this census table may be helpful. Keep in mind that the younger generation, Millennial and Gen Z, are increasingly more diverse than the general population. Okay. But what does it have to do with the story that you're telling? None of this talks about, there's not one mention here of make a good story. They're basically just telling you, and this is, by the way, how to write a screenplay, and also the story you're telling. But again, who wrote this drivel? Who could even possibly write any story of any kind of consequence that many people would like by following these rules? I can't wait. Somebody's got to do the AI-generated version of whatever is here. For stories set in the past, check your assumptions about the demographic reality of the location. Consult historians and demographic experts to understand who lived in the time and place your story's set. Okay. So does that mean that, like, if Mads Mikkelsen is starring in a movie that's set in Northern Europe, it's okay to make the movie they made? Or do you just have to put things in them? Story descriptions also do not have to adhere strictly to the views many hold about the past. Oh. Examples of casting that has countered normative historical views include David Copperfield, who is played by Dev Patel, Anne Boleyn, played by Jodie Turner-Smith, Cinderella, Brandy as Cinderella, Whitney Houston as the fairy godmother, Bridgerton, and others. These stories included actors from a variety of racial, ethnic backgrounds, counter to what audience members might assume was the norm for the time. No, they weren't assuming it was norm for the time. Anne Boleyn was white. Cleopatra was probably of Greek descent. I mean, age, religion, and occupation. Aging and older adults. Consider asking the following questions. This is great. Research shows that few characters aged 60 and older appear in fictional storytelling. How your story depicts aging characters is important, as studies have shown that physical, communicative, and cognitive fitness of older characters is often mocked or ridiculed on screen. According to this, everybody is mocked and ridiculed. So, aging and older adults. Consider asking the following questions about characters age 60 plus in your story. Are any characters age 60 plus not men? Think about women, gender non-conforming, including non-binary people, and those from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. Are your characters age 60 plus written as people who enjoy thriving, fulfilling careers? Are there power differences among men, women, and non-binary characters in this age group? Is the full humanity of characters age 60 plus depicted? Are they shown in a caring relationship, working or retired, as healthy, exercising, or traveling? What do you think characters that are older? When have you ever seen Clint Eastwood fall into this? I know he's a white male, so maybe he's either exempt or we don't talk about him anymore. Are characters age 60 plus? I guess book club. Problematic? I don't know. Are characters age 60 plus shown with challenges that are physical, using a mobility device to walk, communicative, hearing loss, reduction of speech fluency, and or cognitive? If so, are these details crucial to the plot? Are any of these depictions framed as in a humorous light that makes the older character's age or disability the subject of disparagement? You know what? People getting older, and I'm one of them, are not going to, if you're going to make a joke about failing eyesight, I'm going to laugh. One way to test biases in this area, ask yourself if the joke or humorous incident involved a character from another identity group, would it be perceived as unacceptable and or derogatory? For instance, saying, I'm having a senior moment is commonplace, but replacing senior with Latinx, Asian, or LGBTQ would not be acceptable and thus illuminates the potential biases contained in the joke or the humorous incident. Okay, let me tell you something. My dad, before he passed away, was doing cartoons with an artist called Senior Moments. And do you know why? Because everybody who was living in Sun City West in Arizona, where he lived, understood what those were. It didn't matter whether you were LGBTQ, black, white, pink, polka dotted. Everyone understood what a senior moment was because virtually everybody where my dad lived had those moments. That isn't stereotypes. That's life. I mean, and you know, if somebody says I'm having a senior moment, that, by the way, is a quick shorthand that should not be out of anyone's ability to address in a story. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. In terms of romantic relationships, are older characters shown overly sexualized, predatory, or without interest in intimacy? I loved in Cocoon when all the guys went into the swimming pool and they all came out with boners in the alien rejuvenating waters of that swimming pool that were holding those cocoons, giving them nourishment. And I don't know if it was Hume Cronin. I don't know who sang it, but somebody, I think it was, what's his face? And I'm drawing a blank on his name. Not Wilford Brimley, not Hume Cronin. Why am I drawing? He sang, I'm in the mood for love simply because I've got one. A boner. I mean, can you not tell that joke anymore? It was funny in the context of Cocoon. Doesn't Cocoon turn 40 years old? I know someone's going to say Cocoon. You know what? You guys get the idea. If you want to read about religious stereotypes, because God bless you, I'm so happy to have The Exorcist. Because, does that portray Catholics in a bad light? I think not. I think Catholics are portrayed in a good light because we needed Max von Sydow, we needed Father Marin, and we needed Lancaster Marin to save, and it wasn't even her. It was Damien Karras who saved the life of Reagan McNeil in that movie. Anyway, I can't with this. I just don't understand what the fuck is happening to our society. When I'm reading something like this, I would ask them, what is an example of a movie? I would take the 100 best movies from the AFI list. Actually, we can do that now. That's wonderful. Let's do this together, just as an exercise. Let's see if the 100 greatest movies, AFI top 100. Let's see if these films will pass muster. Let's see what we got here. AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies, 10th Anniversary. Okay. Number 1, Citizen Kane. That portrays people who own newspapers in a bad light. And, of course, a character wants a hot actress and tries to make her a star. Number 2, The Godfather. I think that's nixed because, Italians. You can't portray Italians as being in a criminal enterprise. Can't do that. Number 3, Casablanca. Oh, Casablanca takes place in Africa, and there's a lot of unscrupulous, unsavory types, and let's face it, it really portrays the Germans as bad. I don't know what we can do. And Sam, we have a prominent black character that it's in a subservient role of working for the white guy playing the piano in his, bar where they do illegal activity. Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta, a movie with lots of violence against women because Jake LaMotta was a violent fighter. Can't do that. Singing in the Rain. I don't know, maybe that'll pass muster. I don't know. Gone with the Wind, already canceled. Lawrence of Arabia, perhaps not a great depiction of that part of the world. And, is T.E. Lawrence a race traitor because of the sides he picks? Don't know. Number 8, Schindler's List. Can't do that. That movie's sympathetic to Jews, and they've fallen out of favor recently. Remember, genocide in Gaza, right? Can't have that movie anymore. Vertigo. Well, you got Jimmy Stewart basically grooming Kim Novak to be the model of a woman he lost. The Wizard of Oz. I can't even. There's so many things problematic about The Wizard of Oz. The Searchers. Can't do that. Can't do The Searchers. It's a Western. Can't do that. Star Wars. Can't rescue a princess anymore. Can't have chivalry. Psycho. Well, there's a depiction of a white man. We all know that they're crazy and they have mother issues. So maybe we can get away with that. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Well, the gendered computer, who's clearly male, becomes a psychopath and kills his astronauts. Or tries to. Actually does, except for one. So maybe we can keep that. Sunset Boulevard. An aging starlet goes crazy living in her house because she's lost her beauty and she's lost her value. Problematic movie. And then she murders a dude. Can't do that anymore. I mean, every single one of these movies that's on this list will wind up being problematic according to this list. This is not the way to create art. It's not the way to tell stories. And it shouldn't even be in a place where, we have to push back against this in no uncertain terms. This kind of allowing people to be this kind of weird fascist groupthink, bizarre DEI. And the thing is, I'm the one that is advocating for hearing from stories from all different kinds of people. I want specific stories about people's lives. I want to hear all of the parts that are unsavory, the parts that are difficult to comprehend or to experience, because they have. Give me stories about every single kind of person. I want stories about the entirety of human experience. But here's the thing. They have to be in the context, if we're talking movies here or TV shows. Movies have a context. They have a formula, a form, the 3-act structure, act 1, act 2, act 3. They still have to be good movies. And I will watch movies. I've watched movies my whole life from all around the world. You know, you want Asian representation? There's a vibrant film industry. You want to talk about East Asian representation? There's another there's violence in those movies, but another vibrant film. You know what? And I'll tell you one thing. There's a lot of Indian movies that are not going to pass muster here. Just saying. Not going to pass muster. But I want to see films from all around the world made by all kinds of people. I don't care if they're Republican, Democrats, straight, gay, black, white. I don't care. I want great stories well told. I want stories that feel authentic, if they come from the streets, or they come from on up high, or they come from the mountains. I don't care if they come from Nepal, or I don't care if they come from wherever. Show me a good story. You know, I watched a harrowing Iranian movie recently called Holy Spider that has hideous violence against women, that's based on a true story. Some might say that it really paints the misogynistic Islamic culture in a bad light. But it really happened. There was a father, a family man, who started killing prostitutes because he thought it was his divine right to do so. Watch it. It's a really interesting movie. It's really hard to watch, and it's very well made. Could you make that movie underneath these guidelines? I think not, but it's based on a true story. Where does this end? Where does it end? Are we going to lose our ability to tell the truth? One of the things about humor is it allows all of us to recognize the folly of human life. Humanity is funny. We're funny. All of us are funny. We're funny because there are stereotypes that we can all recognize. And to be able to point fun at ourselves and each other is vital. It's vital. It helps us recognize one another. It also helps us recognize these things about ourselves. And when you don't have it, it's sad. And I fear that we're creating a whole group or a whole world of people that are going to be terrified to tell the truth, and terrified to tell their truths, and terrified to tell just a good story. We cannot lose that ability. We cannot allow things like these DEI initiatives to define who and what we are, to be defined by a list of what you can and can't do. Who writes that list? Oceania's still at war, whatever. Read Brave New World. Read Aldous Huxley. Read George Orwell. Read 1984. Watch George Lucas's THX 1138. How many of you Star Wars fans whoever have ever sat down to watch THX 1138? How many of you might only think about a prisoner transfer from cell block 1138, and that's the only experience you have with that number. But George Lucas was referencing his own movie in Star Wars when he used that number. The THX sound system, THX 1138, 4EB if you saw the student version. Have you watched it? You should. You should go back and watch 1984's version of 1984. Watch these things. We have to stay ever vigilant. Now, what do you guys think? I can see that many people have fired in super chats and all this. I'm going to get to what you're saying right now. Let's get into it. Let's see. Oh, okay. This I can already tell this is going to be a banger. These guys, you guys have not let me down. John Ortiz is an imagination connoisseur. I wonder if that's the actor. I love that guy so much. Garrett Groover says, "Is it me or has February been a complete dud for movies? You know it's bad when the biggest releases this month are Argylle and Madam Web." Ooh, is that true? That's not good. But yeah, that's unfortunately, and a lot of that has to do with the strike. A lot of movies were pushed back, but hey, we're getting some good ones coming up, and tomorrow we should have some good trailers, or maybe our first look at Deadpool 3. I'm curious about that. But yeah, it happens when there's a strike. The business is disrupted. But yeah, Jason Webster says, update: Godzilla -1 has won the special prize at the Elan d'Or Awards. That's the All Japan Producers Association. Well, that's amazing. Cheers to Godzilla -1. Of course, Amazon would probably say there's only Japanese people in it, so it's not diverse enough. Kenneth Colton says, "Hey, Rob, just got done serving democracy playing Helldivers 2. It's just like Starship Troopers on PS5. Very fun. Check it out." I have to check it out. I got to fire up my PlayStation 5. Garrett Groover says, "Why is Disney hiring someone with no feature film experience to make a Star Wars movie? Why not get someone like Catherine Bigelow, who has filmmaking talent, if they wanted to have a female director?" Garrick, that is a very good question, and I don't know the answer to that. Oh, I do, because they want to do that whole representation thing. Why hire somebody that knows how to make a movie when you can hire somebody that hasn't and point to them and say, "Look what we did"? It's ridiculous, especially with a Star Wars movie. Scott Bartholomew says, "I would propose that DEI is an infection where the root cause is a society that no longer has a moral compass." I would agree with you. I think that's absolutely true. And also, where's merit in all of this? Where's talent? Where's the work put in? And here's the thing that I think needs to be understood. Not everybody, like if you look at the demographic makeup, first of all, Hollywood is a hellish place to try and make a living. In the best of times. Now, if you look at the demographic makeup of the United States, how many people actually want to go into Hollywood? Like, I think that the census, the black community in America, I think it was in the 2022 census, it was just shy of 14% of the United States is black. How many of those people are crazy enough to want to go try and work in Hollywood? And of those crazy people, how many people make it? I mean, it's an incredibly small percentage. So what you're asking for, there's other places that I didn't even get into. I just got into the storytelling of this. There are other places that talk about, 50% of your crew has to be from underrepresented groups. Well, where are they coming from? You're asking 50% of people that are already a small percentage, comparatively speaking, and then of those people, how many go to Hollywood? So it's weird. It's a bizarre thing to me that merit is not taken into consideration. And I'll say this. I worked on my first professional shoot in 1989, summer of 89, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I was in the art department. And movie sets are very much workaday. I would call them blue-collar places. We all work for a living. People are hauling cables. They're building sets. They're painting. And in my experience, both working on movies and covering movies as a documentarian, movies are pretty diverse. Go into the hair and makeup departments of any film or the costume departments and see what you find. And I mean, it's an artistic endeavor, which because movies are artistic, they pretty much attract people that are flamboyant and who are interested in the arts. So there is a predominantly larger group of people and when you're working on productions, it's almost like a Romani, you can't say gypsy anymore, a Romani caravan. That's what it's like. It's like a carnival atmosphere. And I don't know where all this comes from. I think it mostly comes from writers' rooms, and again, how many people want to be screenwriters? And you know how hard that is to be a screenwriter and break in? And I would say this, as I always will. If you feel that you want to work in Hollywood and you are a marginalized person and you think you have no way of getting in, you do have a way of getting in. Go make a movie. Go be like Spike Lee when he made She's Gotta Have It. You have something to say that you don't think anyone's listening to? You've got 4K cameras in your phone. You can get a group of people together and go put on a show. See if you have any talent. Nothing is stopping you. No one is stopping you. It's just really hard to make a great movie. And if you want to get into Hollywood, I even suggest go do it. Go try and do it, because it will show you immediately just how difficult it actually is. So, yeah. This is Dr. Fauci's prison butt. I love when you show up. There are several NGOs that rate the film studios on DEI and then offer up people to hire and other remedies to solve this. Should this behavior be taken up by the government as extortion? Well, first of all, making movies is an artistic endeavor. Yes, it's where art and commerce meet. And I would say that the people that you want to make movies, because of how hard it is, have to be really good at their jobs. They have to be. There's too much, and we are seeing the results of people that aren't good enough. We're seeing results of it now coming out from the major studios. Look at how much money has been lost by Disney at the box office over the last 2 years. And it's not a racial thing. It's not a LGBTQ thing. It's not a sexuality thing. It's not a religion thing. It's not a Republican Democrat thing. It's, do people who are qualified to make $200 million movies, are they qualified to make $200 million movies? That's the question you have to ask. Are you qualified? And you know what? Disney has, there's a couple of you. Ryan Coogler has proved he's a black director. He's a self-made man. He made an independent movie. And then he came up with his own franchise movie in Creed, which, by the way, he created. No one came to him and said, well, you need to hire a black director. No, he was the one that came up with the idea and went to Sly Stallone. He had the talent. He made Fruitvale Station, terrific independent film that deals with very charged racial issues in this country. Really great. Then he goes and he makes Creed. He makes a franchise property that he willed into existence. Be like Ryan Coogler. I mean, and then he directs Black Panther. Now he's doing a reboot of The X-Files, which, by the way, I hope it's great. And I think if anybody can make it, he's proven that he can work in 2 franchises and turn out some bangers. So you go. Rough Riders X said, let's be honest, Rob, you're dancing around the DEI question by mentioning LGBTQ. DEI means N-word. Stay in your place. You know that. Come on, dude. I don't think that's necessarily true. It's not just about Black America. It's about Latin America. I mean, Latin America here. It is about LGBTQ here. It's about, to a certain extent, Asians. It is about all different kinds of people here. It's not just about one person. But the problem is, again, I would say what they're not talking about is merit. I mean, merit, it's so weird that we don't demand excellence from people anymore. I mean, look, we need to start demanding, we need a highly educated national defense. We require highly educated, smart people that are also physically fit people. We need a smart, healthy population. And something tells me in the next 10 years, we're going to need it real fast for various reasons. And I do think it's more, the DEI initiatives are more inclusive. It's not just one group. Darth Plato says DEI is the modern iteration of liberté, égalité, fraternité. Both were imposed on the larger society through the medium of theater, movies, and TV. In the French Revolution, you had to change to affirm the new order. DEI employs the same method. Oh, I believe it. We've seen it all through human history. It's bad news, man. It's bad news. Look, the smarter your population is, the better off we all are. You know, that's what I say. And I'll tell you something else. You want to work, the people that work their way into Hollywood are usually those who are self-starters. If you look at all the people that Steven Spielberg walking onto the lot at Universal at what, 19? I mean, these kinds of people, making movies is the kind of thing where you start on your own. Nothing is stopping you right now. Look at the kids who made Talk to Me. You know, they were cutting their teeth on YouTube videos or TikTok or Instagram, whatever. They worked their way up to making a feature film. Why aren't more people doing that? Well, I don't know. One, it's really hard to make movies, but nothing is stopping anybody from going out and making movies, I would think. And you can distribute them yourself worldwide, globally, right now on the internet. MK Solid 82 says, any foreign race entering Europe in the Middle Ages was seen as an invader. Attila the Hun, Saladin, and Genghis Khan. There was no diversity. Yeah. I mean, by the way, Saladin, everybody should watch the extended version of Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven. Great movie. Micah Dama said, YouTuber Baggage Claim did an awesome video on the narcissism of non-binary people. It's eye-opening. She says a line that struck with me. Non-binary is for people who don't want to grow up. There is, I believe there's more and more psychological evidence to support that. Again, I don't know enough about those kinds of things. I always encourage reading as much as you can on a subject before making an opinion, coming up with an opinion about it. By the way, I also believe this politically. However you define yourself, Democratic, Republican, a libertarian, independent, always read up both sides of the equation. Read up on leftist thought, read up on right-leaning thought. I get dinged when I say I watch people on the right. I'm like, why wouldn't you? You know, no one's going to hurt you. You should read about all different points of view. That's how you become a well-rounded and informed human being that can make good decisions and choices. The more you know, it truly is. The more you know, not nobody cares. It's the more you know. Oh, that goes from one direction to another. So I encourage everybody to read up on the issues. I like when I get my voter guides here in California because they give you both sides of the issue and they kind of make arguments for you. I love that. I love reading up on both sides of the issue. And I watch a lot of people on all different sides of the spectrum. And it's disappointing to me how I see more and more people on what I would normally consider myself as a classical liberal to be left-leaning. I see the left as being woefully misinformed on a lot of the issues. And I really think people have to start stepping up and reading, especially about history. First and foremost, read your history. There's nothing more interesting than reading about history, and read both sides, you know? I like to read William F. Buckley, conservative thinker, you know, or do I agree with William F. Buckley a lot of the time? No, but he was a great thinker, and you learn a lot. And if there's somebody that you don't like a lot of people hate Jordan Peterson. I didn't know anything about Jordan Peterson until I started hearing about him with the free speech idea and talking about government-imposed speech. But I did read his book, 12 Rules for Life. And then I hear people just go, oh, Jordan Peterson is this, that, or the other thing. And I'm like, did you read his book? And people haven't. I'm like, you might not he's very religious, obviously, but you might not like him. But if you dislike him, at least learn something about him. Read the guy's book. You know, if you can get it for free, you don't want to support him, fine. But read his book before you hate on him. And I think that's true about everybody. You should read about them first. Even if it's a cursory Wikipedia article. Read the whole article. And maybe you'll see something interesting, and I'm a link diver. I hit a link, I dive. I go right down into the rabbit hole. Give me a good deep dive in links. Give me a bunch of links to find out about an article, and I will read them. I will dive. Suddenly an hour and a half's gone by, and I consider myself more educated about a subject. So I don't know baggage claim. I'm going to watch this video, though. 1001 Johnny says, chivalry is truly dead, and we have killed it. Amen. It's true. And we have what? Why is chivalry a bad thing? You know, I mean, when did protecting women by men go out of style? I mean, the fact is we have plummeting birth rates in many of the countries. You know, I heard an interesting statistic. I said this the other night about Korea, that for every 100 people now, or 100 grandparents or something, there's only 4 people to replace them. And that's terrifying. That means that the Korean population is in a serious free fall. That is dire. And why is that happening? What's going on there? I don't know. Michael says these rules will make TV and movies predictable and boring, and no one will want to watch them. I mean, are you telling me that I can't watch a movie like Training Day? Who doesn't like... All right, by the way, Training Day and New Jack City are a great double feature. Both of those are about strong black actors playing lead roles that are very bad men. And they're great. And I would never give them up. And I wish New Jack City would come out in 4K. Because Training Day did. But according to Amazon, can't do that. Can't make that movie. Nope. Tom Jr. Jackson, I haven't gotten to the memberships yet, but don't worry, Tom, I will get to them. There's plenty of stuff here, and I just haven't got to those messages, but I will. I'm behind. There's a ton of messages, but thank you for pointing me out. And Tom says, thanks for taking the time to chat with me today. Well, we had a great member chat today. It was great. Marco Esquindoles says, I hate to be mean, but Hollywood is going to lose lots of dollars. This is insufferable logic. It's not logic at all. I know I guess I'm not working for Amazon. It's so stupid. I mean, to me, it's such a dumb, it's antithetical to storytelling. Why do you want to do that? I don't know. Rough Riders X says, MK Solid 82 says, the Middle Ages was after the fall of the Roman Empire. They left an assortment of races behind from conquered lands. You know that. That's true. That's true. But, you know, how far did they get up? Up to Hadrian's Wall? I mean, how far? It's pretty interesting. Duke Devil 95 says, in light of all this, DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equity, the proper acronym for this stuff, I think we should remember that this week was the 40th anniversary of Blazing Saddles. I hope everyone still has a physical copy somewhere. Duke Devil brings out something interesting. Was it on Max? One of the streaming services now has a disclaimer at the beginning of Blazing Saddles about how it's problematic in its depiction. I mean, how stupid is it that a movie that's all about the silliness of racism, a satire about Hollywood, has to now have, it's not 40 years, it would be, it's not the 40th anniversary of Blazing Saddles, it's the 50th anniversary of Blazing Saddles. That's a 74. So that's a 50th anniversary, and a century later. Now we live in a time where Blazing Saddles came out in theaters to audiences that loved it. It was brought to us by Mel Brooks. And 50 years later, half a century later, oh, we're so fragile now that, oh, you people, you might feel offended if you watch this 50-year-old fucking movie. A movie that shattered certain racial stereotypes. I mean, my God, are we that stupid? Are we that fragile? We're supposed to be evolving. We're turning back into, like, Leave It to Beaver. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I have a physical copy, though. Scott Bartholomew says, DEI is driven by a minority shoving it down the throats of the majority. That's probably true. But remember, the idea behind it is a sound idea. The idea that we want to have an equitable culture. Not necessarily equality of outcome, but we want to have equality for people to be able to try and do their best and get whatever they can. But the thing is, not everyone's equal. human beings all have different abilities. They all are able to do things better than others. As I've often said, I'd love to have been LeBron James in a life, but I will never be. I could play basketball every single day of my life, and I would never be able to touch LeBron James. I couldn't. And that's okay. What's important is that I recognize that I'm never going to be LeBron James and focus on something I can be, like a YouTuber. That's the real question, is you have to be an adult enough to know, what are you good at? And follow your bliss. Try and find that direction. I know a lot of people that, I want to be a film director. I made one movie. It didn't make any money. I've never gotten another chance. I produced films, but I still want to be a film director. It's been 25 years since I directed a movie. Actually, 26, because the year it came out was 99. But does that make me depressed? Have I stopped working in the film business? No. I'm working on a film that I produced right now called White Devils. I'm not kidding. And I'm doing an audio drama that's going to be very, very cool, working with a very renowned novelist, comic writer, movie guy, Max Allen Collins. You just keep going. Thomas Bennett says, in college, I told a joke about a friend being so drunk he forgot he couldn't walk. The class was offended. My friend and I both use wheelchairs. Is that true? That's actually funny. But why do people get offended at jokes like that? I don't understand. Like, do the people in wheelchairs not know they're in wheelchairs? There is wheelchair humor, and I'm sure nobody tells Jewish jokes better than Jews. They don't. So it's wild. And sometimes I don't get what happens to me. Let's see what we've got here. I'm going to go back and see what I'm missing. Rough Rider, I got that. MK Solid 82, no, I got that. Michael just became a new member of the channel. He became an imagination connoisseur. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. The Legolas says, Denis Villeneuve mentioned that Frank Herbert intended for people to perceive Paul as an anti-hero. Do you know why? How do you see Paul's journey as in the books? Well, the Legolas, how do I put this? Paul Atreides butchers billions and billions of people. So you just need to get to Children of Dune. Well, actually, you got to go through Dune Messiah first. All I can say is stay tuned. Yeah. Frank Herbert intended people to perceive Paul as an anti-hero. Yeah. Yes. Just wait and see. I don't think you're going to see that in Dune Part 2, though. Jihad begins, but billions of people die, and it's all because of Paul Atreides. I'm just saying that. And by the way, it's going to be a fun time for you if you don't know the story. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, you're going to enjoy that. By the way, Rough Riders X, these are the first super chats Rough Riders has sent me. So Rough Riders X, thank you for that. I appreciate you supporting the channel. That's pretty cool. I like having new people. Dieter Bastion's here. Dieter Bastion. By the way, Dieter and I will be on at 11 a.m. tomorrow, Pacific time. Hey, Rob, Indy hurt me in Dial of Destiny with his stereotype that Germans can't be funny. Who wrote that script? Should be ashamed. Not. See you later. Well, Dieter, we know you're the world's most favorite German, and I'm offended that Nazis have been villains for so long, and I understand how a lot of people might be offended by that. Duke Devil 95 says he's wrong that Blazing Saddles is 50 years old. You can do the math. It's okay. Mexican Iron Man. By the way, if you can't actually, can you see it? I can't see. My Mexican Iron Man is I gotta put him in a more. He's right there. Mexican Iron Man. Mike gave me an actual Mexican Iron Man with a Mexican hat as an iron sombrero, and it's one of my favorite things that I own. Just want to say that. Mexican Iron Man says, "Holy hell, the Hispanic section. I think I want to throw up." Dude, I know. I don't think they asked any Mexicans like yourself to weigh in on that. Captain J.T. Kirk says, "This is insane. With all these restrictions, why even make screenplays anymore? Just call it a day and go home and retire. I'm with you there, man. I mean, it's so weird to me. It's so bizarre that that's where we're at. It's really strange. Don Matan says censorship of art is the beginning of communism. Certainly, absolutely. But you know these Marxist kids today, I mean, it's amazing. They're all driven by the fact that they don't want to work. Working's hard. Go be an influencer. People think doing YouTube shows is easy. It's work, let me tell you. 1001 Johnny says, Rob, something I wanted to mention during the chat today was that a funny thing happened this week. The YouTube channel Fee, F-E-E, made a video about a certain sci-fi film, a Charlton Heston film from 1973, about a world where natural resources have become impossible to produce. I'm sure you're not guessing it's Planet of the Apes or Omega Man. No, that would be Soylent Green. Soylent Green. Today is Soylent Green Day, and Soylent Green actually kind of holds up very, very well. Of course, you couldn't make it now because women are called furniture in the movie. I know. They are. It's true. Mario Lopez, all the way from Portugal. Mario has been a member of this channel for 34 months. Well, thank you, Mario. And say hi to your mom for me. Marco is back. Escondola says, wishful thinking the Amazon document seems so broad, it may render itself useless. Perhaps just a PR move. Well, I did put the link down in this chat, in the description of this chat. You can all go and read it. It's quite a banger. And I wonder what they're trying to do. Like this idea about not offending people. Like, first of all, what's wrong if you offend somebody? I mean, everyone's going to be offended for some reason. I mean, are we so fragile as people? I mean, what's amazing is if you look around the world and some of the things that are happening, whether, you're seeing a dash cam video of somebody catching a shootout, or you're watching what's going on in the Middle East, not just in Gaza, but all around the Middle East. Are we pretending none of this is going on? Are we pretending that there's not incredible, inhumane things happening? That Mexican cartels, a woman who was looking for her brother or something, was killed by the cartels, a reporter. I mean, how much violence is going on around the world? We act like that none of that's going on. And we're horrible people. Human beings are terrible. And are we pretending we're not? Or are we going to go back to some kumbaya day where we're not going to watch movies that don't have a shred of reality in them? It's so weird. Like, I don't understand what the point of it is. John Miller says, applying DEI policies to screenwriting can only result in characters that are completely bland. Men who aren't masculine and women who aren't feminine. Boring. I agree. I totally agree. There are certain Clint Eastwood movies that you'd be surprised if you go back and you watch some of them. Like The Outlaw Josie Wales. Go watch that movie. And ask yourself, watch the first 20 minutes. Would that movie get made today? I think not. But 1001 Johnny, he goes on to say, this video about Soylent Green was very interesting and talks about how governments who try to solve the problems the masses face, and how the intellectuals spend their time thinking about what the government needs to pursue in order to act when disaster appears. Well, it's true. We're so reactionary. I don't know if that makes the video sound interesting enough to listen to, but they did a trick on me that made me feel its thesis was probably right. And that trick was reminding the viewers of a great Hollywood legend. The video thinks there's something special about his philosophy on life, and I think it rings very true. Maybe check out the video and let me know if it does Edward G. Robinson justice. No, not Charlton Heston, rather his co-star Edward G. Robinson. The video shares the work ethic that Mr. Robinson had when he worked through his acting career. Soylent Green was Mr. Robinson's 101st film and his last. Yeah, because he committed suicide in that movie. I'm kidding. I mean, he did, but spoiler alert. Marco Escondola says, wishful thinking, the Amazon document seems so broad that it may render itself useless. I already read that one. But, by the way, 1001 Johnny brings up a good point. And by the way, I think I'm going to go watch that video. So it was from a YouTube channel, Fee. I don't know that channel, but I'm going to go look at it. And again, I love that kind of stuff. But Soylent Green is it's a very interesting film. And it deals with ecological disaster, ecological collapse. I watched a video. You know what channel I've been really enjoying that somebody here told me to look at? The Moon Channel. MMOON. That spells great YouTube content. The Moon Channel. That was a Stand reference. But there's a lot of really interesting videos. There was a video about all the pollution in our environment and what it's been doing to men's bodies. Like our testosterone levels are diminishing and all that. Terrifying stuff. So that Moon Channel, somebody on the here told me to check it out, and it's a good channel. It's a good YouTube channel, and I've really enjoyed the content. Again, it's just a channel where it's got intriguing things to present, and it's the kind of channel that makes me go on those deep dives through links. I immediately go to the internet and start looking stuff up and reading up on it. Really interesting stuff. Too Incompetent to Stand says, Trial, the original Star Wars trilogy would be problematic today and how the Empire was treated as being evil. Yeah, it's all very one-sided, making the Empire evil. 1001 Johnny says, God damn it, the chat got flipped in the end. I apologize. We got it though. I appreciate what you're saying. That's funny. Too Incompetent to Stand. John Miller says, applying DEI policies to I read that can only result in boring characters that are entirely bland. They are. FEE stands for Freedom for Economic Education, by the way. Ooh, that's interesting. FEE, so I'll look for that. Freedom for Economic. See, that sounds like something that I want to read. Freedom for Economic Education. See, see, people say this, and what I do is I just go hit in Freedom for Economic Education, and find the channel. And I just, when people tell me, fee.org. Paul Krugman's there. Okay, I'm just going to subscribe to that. And then suddenly, whenever somebody tells me, and I like that because in my YouTube feed, I get more diverse stuff and I can find more interesting things. And I like that, which is good. So somewhere here, I have a few letters. I haven't even got to the letters yet because I was so, you guys all have the link. It's in the chat to go to this Amazon thing. I don't know how many people they want to be reading it, but hey, it's there anyway. You can read it. This one comes from our friend Omar94. And it was a Midnight Musings question, but I'm going to read it to you guys now. Hi, Rob, RM, Lael, moderators, and Post-Geek Singularity. It's popular to now bash Star Wars. So I looked when things started heating up. The prequels. They're hated, but as a millennial, many in my age group like them. PGS member Willow Yang said she likes them. Where did Willow Yang go? Says she likes them, but when I was in college, a classmate of mine close to my age said Phantom Menace was his favorite. I dislike them, but I never hated them, as there's a lot of good which I've noticed since first seeing them. There's problems, like Jar Jar Binks, midi-chlorians, the dialogue from all of Jar Jar's lines, and others like, Yippee! Are you an angel? I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. It gets everywhere. And Anakin, you're breaking my heart. Just to name a few, as there's plenty more, and stiff acting from Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker and Natalie Portman's Padme Amidala. However, the good is clearly there. There was actual planning and consistency, telling one overarching story which Disney's movies lacked. I mentioned stiff acting, but there's good acting too, with Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi, Sam Jackson's Mace Windu, Christopher Lee's Count Dooku, and Ian McDermott's Palpatine. The costumes, robots, spaceships, and alien designs were great, like Padme's outfits, Gungans, battle droids, Darth Maul, General Grievous, etc. While not well executed, the storylines were good, with Phantom Menace, where a queen's planet is threatened with invasion from a trade federation and the Jedi tasked to settle the conflict, or Attack of the Clones, with several planets seceding from the Republic, creating a new threat in the Separatists and the Republic debating on making a grand army to fight this new threat. The world building was amazing, which George Lucas made sure of, saying every movie needs new environments, creating a new visual experience each time. Tatooine returned, but we saw new worlds. The planets in Disney's films were all the same desert, iced forests, and water. Naboo had classic architecture on land and then going underwater to Gungan City. Coruscant was made up of one city. Kamino was always rainy. Geonosis was a desert, but with different design than Tatooine. Kashyyyk was verdant. Mustafar was volcanic. John Williams' score was superior in the prequels and the sequel trilogy, especially pieces like Duel of the Fates and Across the Stars, and yet they were never Oscar nominated. The action was exciting. Phantom Menace had Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul's lightsaber duel. Attack of the Clones had Obi-Wan and Jango Fett's fight on Kamino and the Geonosis battle with all of the Jedi. Revenge of the Sith had the opening space battle above Coruscant and Anakin and Obi-Wan's lightsaber duel on Mustafar. There's great individual sequences like the Phantom Menace pod race and the story of Darth Plagueis and Revenge of the Sith. Overall, despite the hate, I've always known there is good in the prequels. Thanks, and live long and prosper. That was a good letter, Omar. I agree with you. It's the human component that really sort of fails that movie. So that's kind of a bummer. This one comes from Undead Sick, and he writes, Anti-Fan Part 2. Hello, Rob. I am writing this letter as a reaction to your Part 2 of the Anti-Fan stream. In particular, your talks about schools and teachers. And I've never disagreed with you more on a number of things. First of all, I think I've already read this, but I'm going to read it again. First of all, I want to say something about the student uprising at Evergreen with the people of color removing themselves before and now demanding stuff. Removing themselves is very easy to accept for the bigger masses because they have the mentality, and I've seen this many times in my own childhood, which I'll get back to. As long as we don't see them, we have a good life because we can pretend they don't exist. But with them demanding things, you actually get confronted with things like exclusion for 100 years and equal rights. See the difference? And to your point that it defeats the purpose, I would say this: action is reaction. Moving on. And this whole thing of me really bothers me as well, because at the end of the day, we all want to be seen. It's all about empowerment, which brings me to the school. I think I've already told you once that I used to be bullied throughout my entire youth, and I suffered from depression. I smoked about 6 packs of cigarettes per week, by the way. You might ask, what does it have to do with anything? Bear with me. At my school, there were 20 teachers, 1 principal, and 1 janitor. Now, I just speak from my experience, but if my bullying happened on my way home after school, I might be more mild towards schools, but my bullying happened on school grounds. And you are telling me that these teachers that I just mentioned have never seen one little thing in 20 freaking years? To me, that's a problem. Not everyone has the resilience to fight back or has friends to lean on. I had no friends in my youth or a girlfriend. This idea that everyone can rise up and be someone by themselves is BS in my opinion. If that were true, I would have thrown myself off a bridge I was standing on, or I would have drowned myself in the swimming pool. Now, the fact that teachers might not see anything, which I highly doubt, is one thing, but for them to look the other way and actually indulge into bullying themselves like I myself witnessed, see where I'm going? Teachers or school systems have way too much power without people controlling them, in my opinion. And we now live in a world where we put labels on anything without really knowing what the issue is, and we have created the label guilty until proven innocent. Oh, wait, it should be the other way around, isn't it? And it drives me insane that this is our modern-day society. Greetings from Holland, Undead Sick. That's a great letter, many good points, but, I mean, here's what I would say about that. Especially, first of all, the thing at Evergreen, and when you watch the videos, you see this. There is a thought, I think, now that kids are smarter than the very teachers that are teaching them. And schools are teaching students, especially, I'm talking about colleges now. Students are customers, and the school's thinking is they have to keep their customers happy. That is a total change from when I went to school. You are choosing to go to an institution of higher learning. You applied to the ones that you wanted to go to. And when you got there, the whole point of going there was to be taught by the professors because of the reputation the school had, because of the facilities the school had, or whatever reason you went to the school, you went there in the first place. You wanted to be there. You chose to apply. But nowadays, if something happens, the kids who go to these colleges think that they're entitled to getting whatever they want because they're, after all, the customer, and the customer is always right. They're not willing to bend and take into consideration where they've gone. I trusted in the college that I went to, and I was rewarded for that trust. I was able to be in an environment where they expected people to be self-starters. Evergreen doesn't have grades and things like that. And when I watched students have always... There's always been uprisings on campuses. I mean, we saw it in the civil rights movement. They were always, you saw what was going on in the 60s, protesting the Vietnam War, protesting civil rights, protesting for civil rights, protesting against the Vietnam War, for women's rights, things like that. But nowadays, kids seem to be protesting because they themselves feel aggrieved in some way. We don't like a certain speaker coming to campus, so we want to make sure that speaker doesn't get to come to campus. I've never seen that behavior before. I mean, I don't understand why if there was an asshole that I didn't like coming to speak at my college campus, I'd be first in line to go see his lecture. Not to interfere with the lecture, but to hear him speak so I would know what to fight against. This idea that college students only want to hear what they want to hear is, to me, antithetical to college. Why are you going to college? Why would you go to college and think you're only going to hear things that you want to hear? The whole point to go to college is to challenge yourself intellectually. You want college to be dangerous. You want to hear opposing viewpoints. You want to hear things that you don't know or don't understand, to try and understand them. So if you disagree with them, you have the tools that you need to fight back. It drives me insane. I do not understand why speakers on college campuses are shouted down by students. That is the most intellectually dishonest thing I can possibly imagine. Just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean that someone else should be deprived of the opportunity to listen to that person speak. And you might learn something. When did kids become so fragile that they can't hear an opposing viewpoint? This is the problem with our narcissistic youth today. They already think they know everything. I mean, they have the most rudimentary, simplistic they don't know history. So if you want to get into the history of a situation, unless it's happened in the last 5 years, they don't know it anyway. They've only watched TikTok videos and decided I believe that person, so I'm going to listen to everything that they say and just assume it's a fact. It's unbelievable. We live in the most anti-intellectual time I've ever seen in the United States. And maybe because it's amplified because of social media, you can see it all day long. But as I say, if we're not willing to listen to other people with opposing viewpoints, we're full of shit. And I can't stand it. And it's gotten to the point where you can barely have a conversation with somebody if they like, even tonight on Twitter, the Israeli situation. Oh, there's genocide in Gaza. There's this, that, and the other thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, clearly you don't even have a grasp of the situation that's going on. You've just listened to what people have told you. You've decided to believe what you believe, and you've never even given history a cursory glance. And I hate that. I hate that kind of, because it's dangerous. And that leads to jackbooted thugs that love Marxism. And I mean, we've seen where that goes. The problem is no one's read enough history to know. It's all right there. The 20th century has a lot of resources that can tell you exactly what happens. Pol Pot, Cambodia. What happened there? Oh, they just did it wrong. That's what happened. They did it wrong. I mean, this channel, if nothing else, all I want to do, if somebody takes anything away from this YouTube channel, it is to make intellectual inquiry into the issues that you're interested in. We certainly saw a teacher show a student how to do it right. And I mean, that teacher was on Piers Morgan. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up the teacher and the J.K. Rowling tweet. and watching, and this teacher allowed a student. They were waiting. It's interesting. It wasn't even a class. He teaches a media class, and this kid was shy and didn't want to go on camera. So the teacher was there, and it was before they were actually recording. He said, "Okay, ask me a question, and we'll delve into it." And they delved into the transphobia of J.K. Rowling. And what was really interesting was watching how the teacher handled it and allowed the student to ask questions and then present what he wanted to present, and the teacher threw it right back at the student. "Okay, I understand what you've read, but is it the way you thought it was?" And the student is the one making the inquiry. The teacher pushes him along, but the teacher doesn't tell him what to think. Takes the student on a journey of what he believes and gets the student to actually reconsider and perhaps change his mind. And it's a perfect example of how the teacher-student relationship should work in an effective manner. And it was great. Look it up. It's fantastic. We need more of that, please. We need more of that. And that's what I think that we need more of now than ever. We need an intelligent, well-informed population that can engage in learned debate and understands. It used to be like you'd take high school debate and you would have to debate a position you didn't agree with. But you had to learn how to debate. You had to learn how to argue. And I don't think people even have the wherewithal to try doing that anymore. And I think that's really a bummer. It bums me out. Sonny Dominguez, the king of squirting, is here. Sonny Dominguez says, "Smoking a joint and trying the Knob Creek Old Fashioned. Not bad for $6. Did you get one for $6? That's great. It's pretty good. By the way, packs a punch if you drink the whole thing." Have you watched the PBD podcast Michael Rappaport was on, which led to a great discussion of his recent realization of certain lies told about politics? Worth listening. And that was the PBD. Well, I will look that up. I have not watched that. I've been thoroughly enjoying Michael. Michael Rappaport went to Israel to check things out. And so, yeah, that was interesting. I wish I had the money. I would do the same thing and broadcast from there and just see what's up. I've been to Israel before. So let's see. Let me go to PBD. The PBD podcast is the PBD podcast hosted by, yes. Patrick Bet David. Yes. I subscribed to that. I thought it was something different. But yes, I thoroughly enjoy watching him. It was very illuminating watching him and Bill Maher go at it. Strider. To add on to the fee recommendation, perhaps also consider the Mrs. Institute for Periodicals and Videos. Thank you for your generous time and insight. Well, thank you for these recommendations. That comes from Strider. The Mrs. See, I'm getting new things to follow right now. So wait, MISES Institute. Mrs. Institute. There's the Mrs. Institute of Austrian Economics. there's a Mrs. Institute of lots of things. I have to put this one this specifically on for periodicals. There we go. Okay. I'm now looking into this. That's interesting. Thank you for that. A performing artist says, "I believe Star Wars episode 1 through 3 would have hit if they had the special effects to make them in 1977 to 83 because fans would have had no baggage." Do you think that's true? You know what? I don't. And I'll tell you, my problem with the prequels is that the human element doesn't work. The acting doesn't work. The actors, it's all green screen. There's no reality to the performances. And I think that the way it was made, because so much of it's made digitally. I mean, the original prequels, a lot of it was filmed on full-size sets at like Pinewood, or they were on location. And while there's sets and everything, it's so digital, and the performances and the way it looks and shot and edited makes it really weird and stilted. It feels like you're watching an AI version of how human beings would speak. And I think maybe if they made it in 1977, it wouldn't have been so digital. And if they shot it the way they shot the original Star Wars trilogy, it might have been really interesting. So maybe, but you'd have to make the characters. And also, here's another thing that people forget about Star Wars. When we watched Star Wars, first of all, we, the audience, were all Luke Skywalker. Some people might have identified as Princess Leia, but she was a princess. Luke Skywalker was the every person. Luke Skywalker was the audience. Han Solo was the cool guy. Obi-Wan Kenobi was your uncle that had war stories. So these were characters that we could identify with. They weren't Jedi. They weren't royalty. And the prequel trilogy is with those rarefied air people, the elites, and the people that work for the elites. So the idea of what's going on, it makes it there's no character. I didn't feel that I was Jake Lloyd. And then when he grew up and became Anakin Skywalker, Anakin was kind of a douche. You know, if Anakin was more, and look, it's the way Hayden Christensen was directed and the way it was acted. If Hayden Christensen was more of, I hate to say it, but more like a normal dude, I mean, you just couldn't relate to him. If he was like a cool kid, a cool Jedi that was a little headstrong, but we really liked him. If he was more like Ferris Bueller meets Marty McFly in terms of his personality, and we just liked him more and we identified with him more, and he was more, if Anakin Skywalker was more us, the way Luke was us, and we really loved him, and we from the get-go, we totally identified with him, and he had good dialogue, and he was a really fun character, it would have totally put the zap on the audience when he turned to the dark side. Because we would be turning to the dark side. And if those prequel trilogy movies were what they should have been, that would have been the banger of all time, is that we love Anakin Skywalker, and we should have. We should have loved Anakin Skywalker, but the way he's directed and the way he's presented, we liked Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Hayden Christensen, between the way he was acting, and I put that up to George Lucas, and the way the character was written, you don't like him. And the whole point would be to make us love him from the get-go, and then pull the rug out from under the audience. That's what I think is wrong with the prequels. Peter Cunnington says, yeah, Rob, there's a difference between just simply not liking someone or someone being hateful and bigoted, a speaker who wants to spread hate. I agree. But you know what? Even a speaker that's bigoted and spreads hate, you should listen to them and understand why they're bigoted and what kind of hate they're spreading, and understand how in a conversation you can combat that. And I think that's always been something that's necessary. And that's why I think it's vitally important to listen to people and understand people that you don't listen to and don't like. Like, I hate Ted Cruz. Do I hate Ted Cruz because he's a Republican? No. I think he's a chump. I've never seen him ever deliver an argument that I agree with. He seems to me to be totally disingenuous and playing partisan politics all the time. I don't like Ted Cruz. I just don't. I watch him. I listen to him whenever he's in a congressional hearing. I can't take my eyes off him because I can't believe he's gotten as far as he has in American government. And to know that he has gotten that far makes me want to be ever vigilant. You know? And while I used to identify as a Democrat, a left-leaning Democrat, a classical liberal left-leaning Democrat, it's really hard now to identify with the Democratic Party, just like it's very hard to identify with the left. As I've always said on this channel, it's not the right wing that's going to come for me. It's going to be the left. It's going to be people I thought were on my side. They'll come with their pitchforks and their torches. They're going to come read my Amazon buying list, and they're going to want my film collection. They're going to want a lot of the books that are on these shelves and not on the comics here. And who knows, maybe they'll want the comics too. I don't know. Scary stuff. Gio Diaz. Gio Diaz, I hope you saw that I turned your letter into a whole video that I released on the channel. Gio Diaz is here. Gio Diaz says, I'm behind live, but you just said Scarface didn't have that much sex in it, too much cocaine. You made me spit my Kool-Aid all over my laptop. Your womb is so polluted. Yes, it needed more because you got Michelle Pfeiffer. But yeah, they do have that discussion about how Tony, things aren't working the way they should. Well, I'm glad, Gio, you made me happy. I hope it was okay to turn your letter into its own chat with its own. I loved making my thumbnail. I thought it was a good discussion, And I want to thank you for that. Very much appreciated that. So I think we are caught up. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I think I'm caught up. I think I'm going to end this chat. Make it an early night. Remember, I'll be back tomorrow with Dieter Bastian and Let's Get Physical Media. So come on down for that. It's going to be fun. And yeah, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me. And remember, the article or the Amazon link is in the description. Read it. Check it out. And it's really depressing to read that. And I guess, does this mean I'll never work for Amazon? The thing is, I love Amazon. I've been buying from Amazon for 25 years. That's why reading something like that is so disappointing, because I've gotten a lot of subversive material from Amazon. And, certainly a lot of movies that people might find questionable. So it's depressing to read. And how do they fit in a show like Reacher with something like this? Do they? I don't get it. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank everybody that generously supports the channel via super chats and tips and memberships. And we had a membership call today. Every 2 weeks we have a membership call, and we had a great membership call today. I want to thank all the members for showing up. Great discussions, some new faces. Always a good time. And yeah, and we'll be back tomorrow. And remember, I'll say it again. Every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And whether you like that story or not, and whether you like the speaker or not, use it as an opportunity to hear an alternative point of view that you might vehemently disagree with. But it'll help you understand your own points of view and why you believe what you believe. I think that's really important, especially today. We have to listen to each other. Even if you hate someone's guts, maybe they have something of value that you could later use. And if you didn't listen to them, you would never know that. You can still hate their guts, but they might give you a nugget that makes you come up with something that will help you in the long run. I don't know what that is, and it might not ever happen, and they might be a fucking asshole. But still, listening to alternative points of view is never a bad thing. And on that note, have a better night.